As I'm sure all of you watching this video are as well, I am a card gamer. And I really like card games, so much so that I've been playing them for almost my entire life. But over this long, not so long life of mine, these 27 years I've spent on this planet, I have played a lot of different card games. And I've gotten into a bunch of different card games over the years, and some I've stuck with longer than others. The longest one that I have stuck with is obviously the main one that I make videos about in this channel for over 10 years now. But anyway, I digress. Today, I am going to tell you about my origin story as a card gamer, where it all began and how I am where I am, and you're gonna get to see some pretty, like, young pictures of me in this video that I have never shown before, and it's gonna be pretty great. It's gonna be pretty great. There's I managed to dig up. I literally managed to find a picture from the very first ever regionals I played in. It's literal like not exactly baby fight. I was like 16 or something, so not exactly a babby, but pretty close. Pretty close. So another thing you might notice from my kind of like, you know, from my voice right now is that I'm sick. I actually caught COVID this week, unfortunately. And it makes sense to tell this story now, because my card gamer journey started in none other than a hospital. I started my TCG journey in the goddamn hospital. And now, unfortunately, I don't have a picture of me playing card games or getting into card games in the hospital, but it all began in the hospital bed. Let me show you what I mean. You may begin crying now. So, as a little boy, I was always sick. I was literally getting sick with everything. The doctors told my parents that I would, like, if they didn't bring me to the hospital for like 5 minutes longer, I would have died. I just had terrible health as a kid. So I was in the hospital a lot. It was just kind of normal for me as a kid. I literally didn't go to, I did not go to freaking, I didn't go to kindergarten because I was in the hospital too much. They were just like, sorry, you need to attend kindergarten. I can't, I'm in the hospital. I have bronchitis. So I topped the hospital locals, that's right. So this is where my TCG origin story comes in, because so this is sadly not me and my dad, but you can, let's imagine for a moment that this is me and my dad in the hospital. And so my dad, you know, the sweet man that he is, would bring me gifts when he would visit me after work to the hospital. And so one day my dad came by and brought me a gift, which was a very special gift, which was a Pokemon base set booster pack. So that's just kind of, you know, this little car is like the booster pack. There we go. So my dad comes in to the, and I think I specifically found the Venusaur one because I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So my dad came in to visit me and he's like, hey, you know, I know you love Pikachu and Pokemon. They released these Pokemon cards. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And to this very day, I still have one of the cards that I pulled from that pack, which is, if I can pull it up here, it is a Electrode. So if we can just, you know, put this instead of the freaking helicopter. So this was me as a baby. I think I was like, I don't even know how old I was, but child me, you know, my dad comes into the hospital and brings me a base set booster pack, and I pull myself an Electrode. I still have it. This is still in my parents' house, and I still treasure it. So very, very bittersweet, I guess, beginning to the TCG story. But I basically got into card games with that. I was like, wow, it's so cool that you can have cards of your favorite thing. And then, of course, much like everyone else, you know, eventually I stopped, you know, being permanently in the hospital. Thank God. I think that I probably would be dead if I didn't. And then the story goes on to primary school. And of course, much like every other primary schooler, what do primary schoolers do in the early 2000s? That's right, bros. They play Yu-Gi-Oh! In the freaking playground. We played Yu-Gi-Oh! With fake cards. This isn't me again, unfortunately. I don't have a picture of me playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In the playground. but we played Yu-Gi-Oh with fake cards and, you know, summoning Blue Eyes White Dragon with no conditions and activating traps from hand. There is simply no freaking rules or anything, no rhyme to it. But this is how it began, right? So I got in, you know, I really liked Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon as a kid, much like probably all of you, or that are born in the 90s or early 2000s. And I think that was just kind of normal back then. Like every kid kind of had this upbringing, whether it was like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! or Beyblade, it was like the trifecta, right? You kind of like, you went through those three all the time. And yeah, the greatest enemy was wind. What is a sleeve, bro? Dude, what if it rains? I'm dead. My cards, my life points get effectively killed in that moment. What was my playground Yu-Gi-Oh deck? I feel like I just put a bunch of cards that Kaiba used. I liked Kaiba as a kid, and then I kind of started liking Yu-Gi more as a teenager. And then unfortunately, I kind of fell out of card games after primary school a little bit. So after the original Yu-Gi-Oh series ended, I was like, Yu-Gi-Oh GX sucks. I hate Yu-Gi-Oh GX. I'm never playing this shit. There's no Yu-Gi in it. That's not my Yu-Gi-Oh. I hate it. So you know what I was into until I got back into card games? I guess you could still call it a card game. And this is where you actually get the first picture of young baby child me. And actually not just baby child me, it's also my brother, because he's a very important part of this story. While I was not into card games for a little bit, I was into another based card game that a lot of kids were into, and I played with my brother all the time, which was Bakugan. And this is a picture that I asked my mom to find, which is of me and my little brother playing with Bakugan and just going absolutely ham. Look at this little shitty smile. Look at this shit-eating grin. Man, I got this haircut actually way earlier than I thought, and thank God. I had like terrible acne until I got it. So, you know, basically played with my brother all the time. Like any games that I was into, my brother usually would get into as well. And then sometimes vice versa, except for Roblox. I never got into that. But basically we played Bakugan all the time. And then, you know, just kind of had fun with it. And then even to this day, me and my brother play a lot of things together. And, you know, I feel like I haven't changed that much from like in terms of my like facial features maybe. My brother looks completely different. It's incomparable. It's basically like I'm showing you a random person here. But, you know, so those were my my like middle school days maybe. And, you know, we played Bakugan back then. And then after that was when I encountered freaking Yu-Gi-Oh! And once again, and that was with Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. So Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds kind of got me back into Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole. So I was really into Yusei. I was really into freaking like Stardust. I was really into Black Wings, like just all the stuff from 5Ds really got me back into it. So me and my brother would like open packs and then like try to build decks and stuff, and just kind of like play together. I still never went to a locals at this point. I never went to a locals, and I did not know that there was even a locals in my country because I never like Googled it or looked it up at the time. So I always just like would get into card games to play with my brother, except for one, which is Magic. But we'll talk about that a bit later. But so I was born in 1996, and I'd say, you know, this story's been spanning throughout those early years, but we fast forward now to 2011. So 2011, I think, is more or less when Bakugan ended, and I was kind of, or maybe 2010 is when it ended, and I was looking for something new to move on to, a new game to focus on. And lo and behold, we had the God game that everyone loves so much coming out, and it could not have been better timing. Because of course, the GOAT, the legend, the absolute, you know, king TCG of all time, Cardfight Vanguard, released in 2011, and I was like, all right, I watched the first few episodes of the anime. I was like, this is amazing. I am super hooked. I got the Blaster Blade and Dragonic Overlord trial decks, and me and my brother played with them for 6 months. At that point, again, I did not know that there was a locals in my city, and there was a Vanguard community for it, or that they sold Vanguard packs. So I always had to ask my dad to buy them from eBay so we could actually like play these games. And the only other card shop where I used to buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards from didn't stock Vanguard, and I was really sad about that because I thought that Vanguard was like literally the best card game I've ever encountered. I was like, there's no card game cooler than Vanguard, and I was so obsessed with it. It was literally everything to me. And I mean, that hasn't really changed. That was like 11, 12 years ago. and I basically, you know, still think that to this day, like at 27 years old. But, you know, at this point, got into Vanguard and had a great little time with it, you know, as we're still playing to this very day. And in 2012, which is when the English version of the game came out and I properly got into it, I managed to find my first locals and then finally really became a card game player, I would say. You know, actually got into TCGs and started playing them very actively. And I went to my first ever regionals. And can you find where I am? I managed to somehow scavenge this picture. This is a picture from my first ever like national qualifiers. And it's actually pretty crazy to think about this picture because in case you can't find me yet, let's see, can anyone in chat? I am streaming while talking about this, but you probably see some like familiar names. Is that Taira-san? Yes, that is young Taira-san in the bottom right corner, the back row, second row from back middle. Yes, that is me. I think if I don't want to crop it because it's gonna look weird, but this was my first ever regionals. So this was in France, in Paris, and I basically, so this, that guy right there is me. Way back in 2012. So I traveled with a bunch of people I barely knew, like by car for 4 hours to Paris. You're pointing at the whole image. I'm pointing at the dude here. I would be pointing here if that was a different dude, but no, I'm pointing at this guy here. I'm not pointing at the image. Use your brain. Use your brain, dude. What the hell, man? Is this a school classroom? Yeah, so this is a university hall, apparently. Yes, very back row, second person. That is myself with the striped t-shirt. Dude, come on, we gotta learn how to use critical thinking in this chat room, dude. This is insane. This is embarrassing. They're gonna call me and say, you raised these kids? I'm gonna be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. It's horrible. But anyway, yes, this is my first ever regionals, and it's pretty crazy to think that I, you know, got in a car with a bunch of random folks. I will highlight in the video in editing who I traveled with. So basically, the person next to me is called Mark. And then the person, so the two guys from on my sides are both from the Luxembourg community at the time. And then after that, the person next to the Goki cosplayer is Nelson. So my longtime friend, literally like my longest friend in Vanguard, that I'm still close with to this very day, is what he looked like back then. And then there's a few other members from the Luxembourg community that we drove with. The lady in the bottom left with the red sweater, she was also driving with us too. And there's one more guy, but I'm struggling to find him, but he was our driver for the day, but he might be like standing behind someone in this picture. So basically this was a squad, and it's pretty crazy to think back. I will make a separate video one day talking about my first ever regionals, because I do have a story from, like, I have pretty good memories of like this event in itself. So I'd like to talk about that one day. Just as its own experience. Nelson has fucked that, yes, for the channel OGs, that is indeed who it is. So, you know, basically that's kind of how I got into TCGs, and like from there on, I was basically just an active player. But it didn't end with Vanguard. Just because I got into Vanguard didn't mean that that was the end of the card games that I got into, because in high school, we actually had a very active community for, I mean, you probably don't even have to guess, because chances are that your high school had this community too, which is Magic the Gathering. So I played a little bit of Magic. I think like 2013-ish is when I played, because a lot of people in my high school played it. We had like a 11th and 12th graders like exclusive room, and it was just full of Magic players. So I always tried to like push Vanguard onto people here, but it like rarely worked. I think people just were more into the style of Magic, I guess. And you know, I guess that's fine. That's kind of the reason why it's so big in like places like Europe. So 2013, I got into, or like 2012, 2013, I would say is kind of when I got into Magic. So I just kind of played with jank. I didn't really build anything proper. I would save and put all my money into Vanguard at the time too, because I was a broke high schooler. And then in 2013, I actually learned the rules of a card game that we mentioned earlier, which is Pokemon. So I learned the rules of how to actually play the Pokemon TCG back in 2013 with the Plasma era. So in the Black and White era was when I learned the rules, and that's when PTCGO came out. And even though I never had a community for the Pokemon card game, I basically got to play through PTCGO for over 10 years, which is pretty nice. So I definitely feel some attachment to that in and of itself. So Then fast forwarding to 2014, I remember, you know, looking at a little post about the upcoming BCS circuit and thinking, damn, this new Bouchard game has best of 3. I might try it out. And that game was Buddy Fight. And you know how my first ever Buddy Fight regional went? I won it, baby. Damn, look at this skinny legend. Skinny legend, DifferentFight. God damn, dude. Eat some freaking protein, bro. What's going on? You look like freaking skin and bones. Look at my arms. I'm like a freaking skeleton out here. There's no meat on my face. That is crazy. But you know what? I was out here picking up dubs. Definitely doing good. And Buddy Fight was a fun game. Definitely enjoyed it a lot. If you scroll down on my Twitch, you see like my card game achievements, and it's like half the things just Buddy Fight. Like I would just like swooping through these events. It was super fun. A little bit of a boneless DifferentFight, if you will. That's right. And then, you know, Buddy Fight definitely went pretty well. I have a lot of favorite cards. Here's an example of what Buddy Fight looks like. Here's a card burn. So Buddy Fight was really fun. I got into it in 2014, basically played it until it ended. Even now, I think I still would like to revisit it, but I left all my decks in Europe. And in Japan, you can actually buy decks too still, which is pretty nice. And then, of course, another game that came out in 2014 that I really still really enjoy and still play to this day, even though it ended also in 2020, same as Buddy Fight, is Fire Emblem Cypher. So this is the card game that one of my most beloved card games. I think it's one of the greatest card games ever made, and it's such a shame that Nintendo pulled the plug on it when the pandemic started. But this is a Fire Emblem TCG. It only ever came out of Japan, but it is a fantastic card game, and it still has an active community to this day. Still has tournaments, even though the game's been over for 3 years. It's incredible. So Fire Emblem Cypher came out in 2014, and really enjoyed that as well. I imported it from Japan just to play it. And then, you know, I basically focused a lot on just like Vanguard and Buddy Fight in terms of like competitive card games all the time. And, you know, I found like another picture here. Oof, this one's like super zoomed in. So this is like a picture from, I think, you can you can see me with the fucking sling bag looking like the ground. What is he so mad about? What is he so mad about? Why is he so pissed? He is seething with rage. I look even skinnier in this one, dude. My metabolism was like insane back in the day. I literally could eat like 4 Big Macs and still look like this. Like, I was like, what the fuck, man? The Buddy Fight Chris was just like built different. Buddy Fight ended and so did my metabolism, bro. That shit's crazy. That shit's crazy. So I was like going ham. I got like 3rd in nationals with Buddy Fight. Definitely had some good runs in the game, so definitely was a very good time. But then in 2017, I basically got into another card game that I don't really play anymore, but I got into this because of a promise to a friend, which is Viceroys. So I basically promised Nelson, the guy you saw in the earlier picture, that if Gurren Lagann ever gets added to Vice, and Gurren Lagann is my favorite anime of all time, I will pick up Vice. And so I did. I bought a playset of every single card that came out in Japanese, and I still have it. Not in Japan, actually, it's in Europe. So that was also pretty fun. So that was in 2017. And then in 2018, after I came back from living in Japan, from my study abroad, and I went back to Europe, I actually, you know, I was doing study abroad in Japan from like 2017 to 2018. And basically, after I came back, I got re-interested in, you know, one of the card games that it all began with for me, which of course is Yu-Gi-Oh! So I actually played Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively for a little period, because even though I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Since my childhood, I never played it competitively because I never knew I had a locals. But in 2018, when the Lynx and the Vrains era started, I was like, this is a perfect timing to get back into it. And I really like the Trickstar deck and also Altergeist and then Salamangreat. Those are the 3 decks that I played basically when I played competitive. And yeah, I played during TOS format. And I enjoyed it. That's I don't know what that makes of me, but I really like Trickstars. And like right now, booting up, you know, Master Duel, I'll play some Salad, I'll play some Math Mech, but I'm always a little bit sad that Reincarnation's at 1. But this, like, to me, I know a lot of the OGs for Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't really enjoy this era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the Master Rule for Link format, but I really liked it. To me, this is a really cool way to actually learn like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And the depths of it And nowadays I really appreciate, like, even though I don't play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, I feel like I can still have a conversation with competitive Yu-Gi-Oh players because I went through that period. Like, it was like a year basically where I played like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh because I just wanted to see what it was like, and also try to poach some of the Yu-Gi-Oh players to Vanguard too. I was definitely trying to do that on the side. I will not ignore that fact. But fast forwarding from 2018 to 2020, another card game that I got into came out, which was a card game that I'm sure a lot of you played at that time in the pandemic, which is Digimon TCG. So I got into Digimon TCG when it came out. Was just having a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a very original game. I wasn't like, everyone has that kind of like nostalgia to Digimon, and I was basically just one of the same, and basically just played a bunch of Digimon. Kind of started to become on and off with it after I moved to Japan. So before moving to Japan, I played it very actively because we had a good locals for it. But here in Japan, I played way less just because I don't have as much time to go to locals for it and travel to events for it. It's just hard because I think like people can't really manage to main more than 2 card games, and I'm already doing that with Vanguard and Shadowverse Evolve. So I play a lot of Digimon locally these days, but not so much like, you know, not so much competitively as I used to. So that was another card game that I picked up in 2020. And now basically these last couple of years, I mean, in 2022, last year, we saw the Japanese release of Shadowverse Evolve. So the digital card game Shadowverse being turned to physical, first time ever that's been done, which is pretty crazy. Play this. It is basically my secondary card game here in Japan. Really enjoyed, really recommend it. Super fun. It's coming out in English next month, I think, so definitely do recommend it. And then finally, the most recent card game that I picked up, and you might be thinking, dude, another one? Like, how many freaking card games do you play, dude? But I basically bought a deck off of a friend that was getting rid of it because I was like, you know what, I've always been kind of interested to try this game. Battle Spirits. So I've, like, if you see me shuffling stuff in the side, my friend sold me a Witch from Mercury Battle Spirits deck, and I was like, you know what, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll learn the rules. I'll learn the game. I've always been interested about like the culture of this game together with Duel Masters in Japan, so I kind of wanted to pick it up. Not so much interested in, you know, Battle Spirits Saga, but the actual original Battle Spirits is pretty cool. So that's that. That is my, and I'm even wearing the the Witch from Mercury t-shirt. But, you know, that's basically my TCG history. I've definitely picked up and played a lot of card games over the years. The one that stayed with me the longest, of course, is Vanguard, literally from 2011 onwards. I've played since 2011, like October, I want to say. So we're approaching 12 years this year, which is pretty long. Like, that is soon I'll have played Vanguard for half of my life, which is ridiculous that there's been a portion of my brain reserved for Vanguard for this long. It's pretty crazy. So let me know in the comments, what card games have you played throughout your TCG journey? Just let me know your whole freaking TCG journey in the comments, why don't you? I'd love to hear it. And of course, if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate that. I'm trying to reach 100K over here, and can't do that without your help. So please come through and support the channel. That would be super appreciated. And of course, if you like the video, give it a like. If you haven't already, come on, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe and let me know your TCG journeys in the comments below. But otherwise, that's me for today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.